Hey everybody, welcome to my Christmas Eric Clapton special. I'm a big fan of the man himself, and I thought I'd do a quick video running through his albums, some singles and some other bits and bobs for anyone out there that's also a fan, or maybe you're new to him and you'd like to learn something. Perhaps you've only heard the odd song or two and you want to know a bit more, or maybe you're just curious. So yeah, I thought I'd start off with some of his albums. I'm going to try and go through most of them from the 70s until the 90s. I'm going to try and do it quickly so we get through most of them if I can, and then show you some other stuff if I have time. So yeah, let's get to it. So basically Clapton started off when he was a teenager. He played locally with a band called the Roosters, but I don't believe they ever recorded anything, and his kind of big break came with the Yardbirds. In 1963, I believe he joined them, and then they made an album called 5 Live Yardbirds. Now I don't have the original cover for this, but I do have the original record. This one was 64, so he would have been like 18, 19 years old when he recorded this. And so when you think about that, it kind of changed a lot really for people at that time, and to be doing that at such a young age. I mean, you'll come to see a lot in a minute when he was doing, you know, what he was doing at such a young age, changing the world really. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting. So yeah, the Yardbirds, 5 Live Yardbirds, a great live album. You know, the rest of the band were okay musicians, but Eric Clapton was obviously very special, and that shines through on this. And I recently watched his Life in 12 Bars documentary. If you haven't seen that and you're a Clapton fan, definitely check it out. And even if you're just a music fan, check it out. It's really good. He talks about, well, one of the guys talks about how there was the Clapton clique where all these people would just stand at the front of the stage watching Eric, watching his fingers, you know, because he was so amazing. At that time, they'd probably seen nothing like it. So, yeah, still a teenager, 5 Live Yardbirds, what a start. Okay, so then basically he got tired of the Yardbirds. There's some various other Yardbirds releases, but he got tired of the Yardbirds and wanted to just do the straight blues thing. And that's when he got asked to join John Mayall's blues band, and something very special happened. This album, John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, featuring Eric Clapton. Also there's young John McVie there, who would later end up as the bass player for Fleetwood Mac. Still their bass player to this day. He's been with them forever. And John Mayall there, obviously. Clapton there reading the Beano magazine. This is commonly referred to as the Beano album because of that. And you can see there he was completely disinterested. In fact, he says in the documentary that he was just this kind of like a monk really. All he did was play blues, and was not interested in this photo shoot at all. He was too cool for that. So therefore he just thought he'd read the magazine, and then thus an iconic shot was born. And yeah, and I'm blanking on his name now. What's his name? The drummer on this album was, if I can find it quickly and not embarrass myself too much here. In fact, I've seen him in person. Huey Flint is his name, I believe. I've just remembered it. But yeah, he was in Beginner's Flint as well. And I actually went to see John Mayall live here, and Huey Flint turned up, and I got to see him sign a Lucky Fans copy of this album with John Mayall. I was like, wow, I wish I brought my copy now. And it's funny because I tried to meet John Mayall, like he was doing a signing, and I didn't have anything for him to sign, so I thought, I know, I'll hang around until after, and I'll get him to, you know, I'll get to meet the man and have a moment, it'd be even better. So I waited around all this time, and then John Mayall came out, and I went to shake his hand, and he kind of grasped my hand, but it was the weakest handshake you could ever imagine, and he barely even shook my hand, and he didn't even look at me. He just carried on walking, didn't even acknowledge my presence, and just carried on walking. I thought, man, what a rock star, or a douchebag. But anyway, he was like 80 years old though, so I kind of forgave him, and I was like, oh, he's probably tired, and you know, I'll leave him to it. But I just thought that was a bit rude, to be honest. He could have at least said hello, couldn't he? But what can you do, eh? I still really enjoy his music, regardless of whether he couldn't be bothered to talk to the likes of me or not. But yeah, that one, if you like blues in any shape or fashion, if you like guitar playing in any shape or fashion, you need to own this album. If you've never heard it somehow, you need to hear this album. This changed music basically, because all those kind of 60s rock and roll guitar players like the Rolling Stones and basically anyone that picked up a guitar after this album was released in '66 were influenced by it, because people had never heard anything like this at the time. Extended guitar soloing like this, it didn't exist really in the mainstream. Sure, you had blues players that would do extended solos, but as far as a mainstream white band doing extended guitar solos at that time, this was it. This changed music, so yeah, get it. That's an original copy, original mono copy. And yeah, a note as well, with that album, it sounds much better in mono. So if you get that album, get it in mono if you can. Okay, so then that was, I think, July '66, and then December of that year. So 6 months later, Fresh Cream came out. Okay, so if you don't know, this is the band Cream, with Eric there. Then you have Jack Bruce, the genius Jack Bruce, bass player, phenomenal singer. And then you've got another genius Ginger Baker on drums as well, coupled with Mr. Genius here himself, Eric Clapton, to make one hell of a band. One of the best bands ever. Psychedelic blues rock. Changed the musical landscape again. And to think that this only came out 6 months later from the Blues Breakers album, I mean, man, not a bad run so far. Okay, classics on this album all the way, really. I mean, just brilliant blues rock. If you don't know this album, get it. This is an original mono copy. Wonderful, wonderful album. Love that one. And then Disraeli Gears came out in '67 the next year. This is an American copy. I've got original English mono copy on my wall, which I was intending to get down off my wall, but completely forgot apparently, so I'll show you this one. I talked about this previously, a classic psychedelic blues rock, again, even better than the first album, so if you don't have this, you need it. One of my favourite album covers of all time, essential, you need that album in your life. I'm not going to show every single album they released and he released because I'll be here all day, but I'll show most of them. Goodbye Cream, that's when they split up basically, and this is the live album. I've got another live album, Live Cream Volume 2 somewhere, which I've mislaid. And there's a few different volumes, and Wheels on Fire, I couldn't find Wheels on Fire wherever that's gone, and that's an essential as well. But anyway, after Cream split up, he basically wanted to go in a different direction, try something new, and then Blind Faith was the album he made, with Steve Winwood on vocals, Rick Gretsch on bass, who I believe was in Family, and then we had Ginger Baker again on drums, and Eric wasn't too happy about that apparently when they first got together, because he just tried to get away from him really in Cream, because Ginger was a junkie and too much hassle basically. And then yeah, they all came together and made this amazing album. This is like a seminal album of the '60s. Get it if you don't have it. An absolute classic, brilliant album, so good. Clapton's playing on this is fantastic. Steve Winwood's voice on this album is otherworldly, it's amazing. So yeah, Blind Faith 1969, get it. There's some footage of them on YouTube actually in Hyde Park at the time. Yeah, so yeah, check that album out if you don't know it. Then came 1970, his first solo album. This is probably my favourite solo album of his. He got together with Delaney and Bonnie. If you don't know Delaney and Bonnie, they're like a soulful husband and wife duo, and he got together with them, and they can be heard on backing vocals on this, and I believe they produced it as well, and Delaney, I believe, wrote some of the songs on this as well. This is lovely. This is a really nice album, so soulful. Eric's voice is really soulful on this. Just a lot of feeling, great playing. Loads of cool people play on this, like Leon Russell and Bobby Keys, and Rita Coolidge does backing vocals, and yeah, just a bunch of cool folks. This is a really nice album. Blues Power, After Midnight, Bottle of Red Wine, Told You for the Last Time. I love that song, really soulful. Let It Rain, just lovely songs. Get it? I love that album. And then yeah, basically not long after Hendrix died in 70, I believe he got into heroin in a bad way, and also he fell in love with George Harrison's wife, Patty, and became very depressed and messed up, as you can imagine. And this came out, Derek and the Dominoes. He got together with Duane Allman from the Allman Brothers and a bunch of other great musicians and made this album. This album's fantastic. He was in a lot of pain at the time mentally, and that can be heard very much so on this. But it did spawn Layla, which is a classic track, obviously. Everything on this album's great. Little Wing is tribute to Hendrix. Tell the Truth. Why Does Love Got to Be So Sad? Have You Ever Loved a Woman? You can see a theme here. He was deeply in love with Patty at the time, and he recorded this album and then kind of played it to her and said, here, this is how I feel. And she was like, wow, this is beautiful. And it kind of persuaded her to marry him, basically, because, you know, what a thing. You know, by the way, I just recorded this album for you. Not bad. Not bad. And then they came out with this great live album. His playing on this is great. If you want a true representation of Derek and the Dominoes at that time, I would say get the live album in a way. The other album is a classic, essential in my book, but to hear some really great guitar playing, really great atmosphere, really captures the band, this album is fantastic. Okay, Rainbow Concert. I believe this was organised by Pete Townsend of The Who to basically get Eric out of hiding because he'd become a recluse junkie, basically, and this was to get him out and playing live again and just get him away from himself. But this isn't that good because of that, really. I barely listened to this album because it's not that great. You know, you can tell Clapton was pretty messed up at the time, but eventually he did get clean and then released this album, 461 Ocean Boulevard. He kind of substituted heroin for alcohol and cocaine, so really you can still hear it in his voice. He was not in a great way really on this album, but it is a great album. One of his best solo albums in my opinion. The album kicks off with Motherless Children with this great blues slide guitar. In fact, this is the first album I ever heard of Eric Clapton, and this album, you know, kicks off with Motherless Children, as I said, and I was like, wow, okay, I'm liking this. I'm gonna investigate this guy now because this is really cool. And yeah, he does Please Be With Me on here, which is a cover of Cowboy, the band, the beautiful song by Cowboy. He does a cover of I Shot the Sheriff by Bob Marley, and that kind of made Bob Marley quite famous at the time because he wasn't as well known in the Western world at that time. And Clapton kind of made him famous by doing that. Steady Rolling Man, Willie in the Hand Jive, Mainline Florida, Give Me Strength, that's a nice song. So yeah, get that one, nice cover on that as well. There's One in Every Crowd, came out after that. This is very chilled out, a lot of reggae on this one. Really nice album. Check that one out. I'm trying to speed through here a little bit so my battery doesn't die and memory on my phone doesn't die. No Reason to Cry. This is a good album. He was pretty drunk on this album, as you can hear, but it is nice. And there's a few fillers on here because I think he was probably wasted and they just needed to make up the album. But it's got Double Trouble on it, which is good. Hello Old Friend is nice. Sign Language with Bob Dylan. Quite a nice album. The band play on this with him as well. Bob Dylan's the band. There's a great big list on the back here of people that play on it, and there's a ton of legends. Ronnie Wood plays on this as well. Yeah, good album. I recommend it. EC Was Here. This is a live album. Play some Blind Faith stuff. Really good album. Get that one if you like his live stuff. Slow Hand, the classic. This kind of was a new era for Clapton. He's got this kind of like chilled out J.J. Cale, raspy, I've smoked too many cigarettes and I sound good because of it voice. Heavy into the alcohol at this point, unfortunately, but really just nice, chill, good music. It has the classic Wonderful Tonight on this, his cover of J.J. Cale's Cocaine. Just really nice album. The production is great on this as well. Sounds great. Classic. Then he came up with Backless. This is a really nice one as well. Same sort of vibe. Just really chilled out songs. Nothing amazing, but just really nice chilled out, bluesy, country, 70s. Nice vibe really. If you want to relax, this is a nice one. He released this album Just One Night in 1980. This is really good. Production on this is great as well. I believe this was recorded in Japan. Some nice blues on this, Rambling on My Mind, Further On Up the Road, Double Trouble, Blues Power, and then it has a mix of his other stuff from the 70s, Wonderful Tonight, Tulsa Time, that kind of stuff. So yeah, really nice album. Really good. Get that one if you don't have it and you're into him. Okay, another ticket. Now I neglected this one for quite a while, but this is actually quite nice. Not amazing, but some nice stuff on it. Floating Bridge, just some nice bluesy stuff. Nice chill one, you know, check it out. And then we have the 80s now, so Money and Cigarettes. Now, I kind of was like, oh, this is mediocre for the longest time, and then recently I've been getting into it. It's bluesy, some nice guitar playing on this one, as you would expect, but he kind of went away from the guitar playing a little bit on his albums because he wanted to become more of a singer and got tired of being the guitar hero, even though when he played live he would still do plenty of guitar soloing, so really, you know, he might as well have done it on his albums as well, hadn't he, really? But yeah, Everybody Ought to Make a Change, Man in Love, Crosscut Saw, the Otis Rush cover, I believe that one is, Slow Down Linda, just nice kind of chilled 80s Clapton, nothing amazing, but just a nice album. Okay, now we go full 80s now, Behind the Sun. So Phil Collins produced this one, and yeah, mega 80s. I'm a huge fan of Clapton, so I enjoy it, but if you're not into 80s stuff and you like the 70s stuff, you probably won't like this. Although we have Forever Man, what's the other one on here that I like? Same Old Blues, that's a good one. Nice bluesy track, but the rest of it is mega 80s, but I enjoy it. She's Waiting, I enjoy it when in the mood. And then even further into the 80s, August. Now for what this album is, I think this album is great actually. It's very 80s, Phil Collins again on production, but for what it is, it's really good. If you just want some 80s pop with some nice guitar soloing, strong voice, this is an excellent album. It's not, you know, not classic Clapton in the terms of these like guitar hero Clapton. This is very much different. You might say even sold out on this one really. You know, everybody's got to earn a living, but at the same time, for what it is, as I said, this is a really good album. If you're in an 80s mood, this is a strong album. Every song on this is good. So yeah, August. And then somewhat of a return to form, you might say, Journeyman in 89. Some nice guitar playing on this. Still very 80s, but very good as well. He does a cover of Ray Charles's Hard Times. He does Hound Dog. Old Love is great. Running on Faith is nice. Bad Love. Anything for Your Love. Just nice tracks. Great playing. We're all just kind of like, I'm in my 40s now. I'm laid back. I'm cool. I'm Eric Clapton. I've got a cigarette in my guitar, and I'm just jamming out and having fun with my friends. Wearing a bright pink suit with my hair blowing in the wind. And yeah, very 80s, but very cool to me. I love all his periods, you know, what can I say? And then in 1991, this album came out, 24 Nights. It's a live album, very good. Very, like I said, sounds very 80s. The blues side on this is very good. Watch Yourself, Have You Ever Loved a Woman, Worried Life Blues, Hoodoo Man. That side is great. The thing is, when he does like Sunshine of Your Love and White Room on this, it's very 80s-ified and it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right to me. And this is that raw 60s Gibson sound. But still, good album. Some of that footage is on YouTube, worth watching. Eric Clapton Unplugged. I think this is 92. This is an original copy that I found in a charity shop. I was lucky to find that. This is fantastic. If you like your blues Clapton, this is brilliant. You can probably watch the whole thing on YouTube actually if you've never seen it before. This is fantastic. Before You Accuse Me, Nobody Knows When You're Down and Out, Walking Blues, Alberta, you know, then he mixes it up with like Layla and Tears in Heaven and Before You Accuse Me, so a bit of a mix, but very, very good. You can watch this on YouTube, see his guitar playing, fantastic. Okay, so into the 2000s now we have an album made with B.B. King. This is fantastic. Riding with the King. Some of this, for me, is a little bit cheesy. You know, it kicks off with Riding with the King. Obviously, he's literally riding with the King. But this, you know, it's Eric Clapton and B.B. King together. This is a great album. You know, if you like blues, this is fantastic. So yeah, check it out. And then another one he did, his tribute to Robert Johnson, one of his idols. You know, his inspiration throughout his life. This is fantastic again. You know, Robert Johnson, obviously a blues icon, Clapton, a blues icon, coming together there. Fantastic album. Clapton, here we have. This is a fantastic album as well. I wasn't sure when I first saw this because it's a modern album. I was like, oh, is it going to be any good? But actually, I was pleasantly surprised with this one. This is a really good one. Of his modern albums, it might be my favourite. Other than From the Cradle, which I don't have on vinyl, unfortunately. That's just a straight blues album that he made. I think that's like late 90s, or early, maybe even mid-90s actually, but it's a straight blues album, and that is fantastic. That might be his best album of later years. If you don't know From the Cradle, check it out, because it's just straight up blues, fantastic guitar playing. You need that album if you're a fan of his. Okay, I Still Do. This is a good album. Only thing I don't like about this album is he does a duet with Ed Sheeran, who I can't stand, and I think it cheapens the album in my opinion, but obviously they wanted to kind of team him up with someone modern and famous. Maybe Sheeran was a fan, or Clapton was a fan of Sheeran's, I don't know, but they shouldn't have done it because it's wrong. Clapton's too good for that, in my opinion. Sorry if you like Ed Sheeran, it's just not for me. Then we have like a best of Cream here. That's cool. Some other albums he's played on, I just thought I would show. Jesse Ed Davis from 1970. Clapton plays on that, really cool album. Dave Mason's Alone Together, he plays on this. You can very much tell. His solo on that. Lost in Austin by Mark Benno, he plays on a lot of this. Mark Benno was in the Asylum Choir with Leon Russell, and I guess that's how they became friends, because Clapton worked with Leon Russell. And this is a really nice album actually. If you like your Americana stuff, bluesy stuff, check this out. Clapton's playing is great, Mark Benno is great, this is really cool. Duane Allman, an anthology. There's a track on here, Mean Old World, which Clapton plays on with Duane, I guess around the Derek and the Dominoes time. It's fantastic. I believe it was on the Eric Clapton anthology album that came out as well. But yeah, if you want to YouTube Mean Old World, if you like Clapton, if you like blues, if you like Duane Allman, great song. Okay, I'll show you some singles quickly, if I can, if I have time, if you're not bored. Cream here, this is an original Austrian picture sleeve single. Great. Crossroads and Passing the Time, you know, Crossroads is an absolute classic, kind of Clapton's kind of theme tune in a way, you know. This was on Wheels on Fire, or Wheels of Fire, am I saying it right? I can't remember now, I'm tired, but anyway, yeah. Cream. One of my favourite bands of all time. I have a couple singles here. Strange Brew, back with Tales of Brave Ulysses, classic, that's an original mono copy, UK. I Feel Free, Bomb 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 Bomb, with NSU, classics. Talking about John Mayall earlier, this is one that came out in 2017 for Record Store Day. This is like live broadcasts from '66. Not essential, but if you're a fan of this album, I say check it out. You can probably get it cheap. A single there from the Backlist period. If I Don't Be There by Morning, and Tulsa Time. Okay, this was one I picked up at a record fair for cheap, just because I'm a Clapton maniac, and I like the cover. It's 80s Clapton. She's Waiting and Jailbait. She's Waiting is not a bad song, very 80s, but if you like your 80s, like I said earlier, it's quite good. It's back with the track Jailbait, which is frankly terrible, and I don't know why he recorded it, but I'll forgo that. I just like the 80s, the sheer 80s-ness of the cover. It was only £3, so I thought, why not? And then we have Tears in Heaven here. A lovely song. He wrote this song when his son died. It's a tragic story, basically. His son crawled out of a 50-story window and fell to his death, unfortunately. Terrible. I mean, I can't even imagine how that would affect you. Unbelievable. But he wrote this song as a kind of way to as a tribute and a kind of way to heal himself a little bit. And yeah, if you really think about it and listen to this, it could probably make you cry. It's really sad, but a beautiful song nevertheless. So yeah, Tears in Heaven. I'll show some books quickly if I can. Okay, so here's his autobiography. I highly recommend this if you're a Clapton fan. Very interesting. Only thing I didn't like about this book is near the end he talks about having to get a loan to buy a yacht, and I thought he could have left that out really, because it doesn't make you seem very relatable, to be honest with you. Other than that, it's a really interesting book. Motherless Child. Now the ones I'm going to show now I haven't got around to reading, but I've just picked them up here and there, and I always find something else to do, but I will get around to reading them all. So Motherless Child there. Edge of Darkness. And then Clapton by Ray Coleman. I just started reading this one recently, Philip Norman's Slow Hand. From what I've read so far, this is really good. I like the way it's written, and Philip Norman was a photographer around at the time in the 60s, and met Eric at that time, and it's quite interesting so far. So yeah, I recommend this one. If you've read all the other ones and haven't read this is really interesting so far. So yeah. Apparently it's got high ratings as well, so I recommend that one. Some other books here. I have a visual documentary. This is an interesting book, really cool. Lots of different, it's hard to show really, lots of different pictures, you know, going all the way through from the 60s till the 80s when this one was released. It's really interesting. It's like day by day basically through the whole of the 70s. A visual history, so really interesting, that one. Also here I have a original Cream 60 songbook here. More Cream. Jack Bruce there with them in the reflection. Really cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have some original tour programs here if you're interested. So here's one, 25-year anniversary, 1988. Picture there looking really cool, standing in a field. Cigarette in hand. Yeah, just kind of has a history of him at the time, and yeah, just around the time of August, just after August, I think August was 87. Cool little tour booklet there. Another one here from the 1989 tour. Cigarette there in the headstock. Classic. And one from the 87 tour. The little sunglasses there, look, little sunglass badge. I remember those from back in the day. And then an advert there for August again that just come out. I think that's everything I wanted to show for now. I mean, that's kind of a really brief run through of some of his stuff. He's obviously done more than this. It's not every album he's ever done, not every single he's ever released. I just wanted to show some of them, a good kind of intro into Clapton. You know, he's a genius guitar player. You know, I've shown you all these albums, but I've not really talked about why I love him so much. But if I've got time here, I'll quickly do that. Basically, he's a super talented guitar player, obviously. I like his voice. He's had different periods, Clapton. Now, some people just love the 60s Clapton, where he's the psychedelic rock god. Some people love the blues Clapton, where he's John Mayall's blues breakers Clapton, and that's all they like. You know, you can't go wrong with Clapton in the 60s, basically, taste-wise. 70s, he was still a fantastic guitar player, playing live, you know, great solos live, but the albums, they kind of were a bit more mellow and singer-songwritery, more country, chilled out, probably because he'd had too much to drink, and maybe that's all he could manage at the time, I don't know, but, you know, there's stories of him lying down on stage, he was so messed up from the alcoholism. But those are really nice albums, really nice vibe. So you have that kind of Clapton. Then you have, you know, the 80s Clapton, which is more poppy, but I enjoy it for the reasons I said. And then he kind of came back in the 90s to his roots, more bluesy Clapton. And then since then he kind of does a mix of all the different eras when he plays live. I think he tends to go for more of the earthy, rootsy, bluesy stuff nowadays, the more his true self really live nowadays. And yeah, that's good. I'm glad he can kind of do what he wants to do nowadays and doesn't have to try and keep up with the Joneses and become an 80s pop star anymore. You know, he is like 75 now. But yeah, phenomenal technique. You know, like when you watch his hands, it's like watching like magic basically to me. When you really study him, like, you know, anybody can kind of learn his licks, but when you really watch his playing, like his finger movements, it's like I can't describe it really. It's like perfection, you know. There's not one wrong note, just perfection to me. A lot of feeling, you know. If you listen to that Blues Breakers album, the feeling on that album is unreal. And he's still, what was he, like 19, 20 or something when he recorded that? You know, incredible, really. Cream, great, that same great feeling, but mixed with that heavy Gibson SG psychedelic guitar. Blind Faith, fantastic playing on that as well. You know, there's a huge discography of Clapton, so there's a lot there for you to check out. I recommend just start from the beginning, really. If you're into the 70s vibe, his first solo album, and then maybe Backless or Slow Hand for that later 70s vibe, 90s or 80s vibe, maybe Journeyman, and then from that point I'd say if you wanted some bluesy stuff, From the Cradle, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, there's a lot there. You know, I'm a big fan. Still never seen him live. I know he's doing a tribute to Ginger Baker coming up in the new year, which I'm hopefully going to try and go to. If he ever plays live again at the Royal Albert Hall, I will definitely make the effort this time. I always don't seem to go because it's expensive, and you know, it's not just a ticket, is it? You've got to get a hotel room, you've got to get there on the train, which is expensive. It turns out to be an expensive day, but at the end of the day, he's like 75 now, 74, 75, so it might be the last time I get to see him. So if he ever does again, I will be there. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. I know it's a long one, but hopefully there's some fellow Clapton fans out there that enjoyed this. I don't know how I did really. Hopefully it wasn't boring. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. And yeah, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a great Christmas if I don't return before then. I may do another video later, I don't know. But yeah, have a good Christmas and I'll see you soon. Cheers.